It's tax season. Have you filed your taxes yet? Are you scrambling to get an extension? Folks, the federal tax deadline is this Monday, the 15th. If you haven't filed, this episode is going to be a last-minute saver for you, so don't forget to tune in today.
Welcome to the Ask Ralph podcast, where listening to an experienced financial professional with over 30 years of experience can help you make sense of confusing questions, current headlines, and industry trends about taxes, small business, financial decision-making, investment strategies, and even the art of proper budgeting. Ask Ralph makes the complex simple by sharing his real-world knowledge from a Christian perspective with all things financial. Now here's your host, Ralph Estep Jr.
Welcome to our Tax Talk Thursday show. I'm so glad you chose to join us. I just want to thank you for listening and supporting the program. Today we're talking about filing for a tax extension. It's that time of year again. It's tax season. Trust me, I know it. For many of us, gathering all of our tax documents and filing our returns is a tedious process, and many of us dread it every year. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, life gets in the way, and April 15th sneaks up on us faster than we had hoped. Friends, if you find yourself up against a deadline without your taxes filed, requesting an extension is a viable option to consider. Filing for an extension gives you more time to get your tax return in order, but it doesn't mean you can't wait to pay any taxes you may owe. That's right. Even if you file an extension, you still need to pay by April 15th. So what exactly does filing for an extension entail? Are there pros and cons you should be aware of? And what steps do you need to take if an extension makes sense for your situation? Today, friends, over the course of this episode, we'll explore what every taxpayer should know about filing for a tax extension. Let's start with talking about the farm. The rain has finally stopped. Yesterday was an absolute deluge of rain. So now let's hope we can get some drying going. But as they say, April showers bring May flowers. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join our email list. You do that at AskRalphPodcast.com. You don't want to miss tomorrow's show when we discuss credit card charge-off and forgiveness and the impact that this has not only on your credit, but maybe on your taxes and your financial situation. I also want to remind everyone, as you can see, we're now releasing a video version of our daily podcast on our YouTube and Rumble channels. I'll put the links in the show notes. You can simply search for the Ask Ralph podcast on either platform and check out our show on video. If you can't get enough of me, you get to see me now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Let's start with a Bible verse for today. And that comes from the book of Romans, chapter 13, verses 6 and 7. This is in the ESV Bible. For because of this, you also pay taxes. For the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed. Revenue to whom revenue is owed. Respect to whom respect is owed, and honor to whom honor is owed. And that's something we can all do today. So let's start with a basic question. What exactly is a tax extension? Let's clarify what a tax extension is. Filing for an extension does not mean you can skip doing your taxes entirely. I wish that were the case, but guess what? An extension simply gives you more time to prepare and file your tax return. As you may know, the standard tax filing deadline is Monday, April 15th. But with an extension, you get an additional 6 months. That's right, you can go up to October 15th to submit your completed return. Now, it's important to note that an extension provides more time to file, but not more time to pay any taxes owed. A lot of people don't understand that. You still owe the taxes on April 15th. You still got to estimate what you expect to pay and send that amount in by April 15th to avoid penalties and interest charges. The extension is just for finalizing the paperwork and calculations on your tax return. Now, it does prevent you from getting a penalty for late filing. It doesn't prevent you from getting a penalty for late payment. Now that you know what an extension entails, you might ask the question, like I just said, why would you want to file one? So here are some common reasons. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these are some of the common ones. Maybe you're waiting for additional documents like W-2s, 1099s, or forms from investments to complete your return. Many of my clients have investments, and sometimes those investment 1099s take some time to get out. Or perhaps you had an error on your W-2 form, and your employer needs to issue a corrected one. Could also be from a major life event, such as a marriage, a divorce, a new child. Maybe you've had, unfortunately, a death in the family. Maybe you're experiencing health issues or a job change. All of these things can delay your tax prep, so you want to make sure you file for that extension. Another reason to file, you could claim deductions or credits but need extra time to calculate them accurately. You may need some time to put together those last-minute receipts. Could be also you recently sold real estate or a business, and the related tax implications are complex and you really need to sit down with maybe a professional like myself and work those things out. Could also be that you earn income from foreign accounts or investments that require additional reporting. Sometimes you get to the point of doing your tax return, you realize that, wait a minute, I don't know how to handle this. You may suspect you owe taxes and you want to avoid rushing into a return that isn't accurate. A lot of my clients will say to me, Ralph, I went onto TurboTax or one of the online sites and I did my return myself, but I can't possibly owe this much. That's when you file an extension. Or you could simply have gotten busy or ran out of time but want to file an accurate, complete return. And that's the key, folks. You want to make sure you're filing an accurate and complete return. If you're unable to do that, then I highly recommend you file an extension. So as you can see, filing for an extension makes sense if your circumstances warrant taking a bit more time to prepare and submit your most accurate information. For some taxpayers, gathering all their documents or clarifying certain details may require using this extra 6-month cushion. It is not intended to be a vehicle for procrastinators. The truth is, folks, if you've got your information ready to do your return and you just need to file it, there is absolutely no reason, in my view, to file an extension. So if you've determined an extension fits your tax situation this year, here's a quick 4-step process. I like to give you some easy action items. Number 1, and this one is key, estimate your tax liability. You've got to make an honest estimate of what you expect to owe for the year based on your current knowledge. This is what we call your extension payment. As I talked about, even though your tax return is being extended, the time to pay is not extended. Your payment is due on April 15th, regardless of whether you file an extension or not. So let's move on to step number 2. And that's you want to pay your extension amount by April 15th. You send in the amount from step 1 you determined by the standard tax deadline to avoid penalties. You can do this online, via mail, or with your tax software. Step number 3 is you want to choose your extension form. You can file for an extension using IRS Form 4868 or by selecting the extension option in your tax software. Both methods work equally well. And finally, number 4, you want to file that extension by April 15th. Form 4868 must be mailed on or before the deadline. For e-filed extensions, confirm that the IRS has accepted your request. That's crucial. If you're mailing the extension request, make sure you send it certified mail with return receipt. A lot of clients don't do this, but you need to be able to prove that you filed that extension timely. Unfortunately, this is a common error that I see when people do their own extensions. Now, internally, we file all of our extensions electronically. That way we have a kickback from the IRS that tells us that it's been filed. So if you follow these steps, you'll have successfully filed for an extension and can then take the remaining time to complete your return accurately. But just be sure to pay your estimated taxes on time and submit your finished returns by October 15th, which is the extended extension deadline. Well, let's talk about some pros of filing for an extension. So we've covered the logistics of how to do them. Let's talk about some of the key benefits. One of the key benefits is you avoid rushed mistakes. Filing when you aren't fully prepared raises the odds of errors. Nobody wants these. And that could trigger an audit. Again, something you don't want. Taking the extra time allows you to be thorough and avoid obvious mistakes. Another thing it does, it could allow you to include more deductions. With the extension window, you can organize meticulous records to properly deduct everything eligible. It might be things such as donations, medical expenses, home offices, and more. Another thing it does, it could prevent underpayment penalties. Without an extension, underpaying your tax leads to penalties. The extra time allows you to pull together all details accurately and accurately calculate what you owe. It could also defer making a big payment. If you owe a substantial amount but can't pay by April 15th, an extension postpones when full payment is due. Now listen, you need to understand, interest and penalty is still going to accrue. If you file an extension, you're not going to get the failure to file penalty, but you will get the failure to pay penalty, and the interest starts on April 15th. Another thing, a pro, is to manage tax obligations amid life events. As I mentioned before, maybe unfortunately you've gone through a major life event and that's made tax preparation difficult. An extension lets you handle taxes appropriately amidst those significant changes. Also prevents you from having to amend returns later. If you rush through your taxes, there's an increase in the likelihood you need to amend it later when you uncover missing information. An extension leads to a more complete return the first time. And this is a question I get asked sometime in my practice. Clients will sometimes ask me, Ralph, listen, I know my tax return is not complete, but should I just go ahead and file it so I meet the deadline? The answer is no. If you do that, you are intentionally filing a false return. I would highly recommend you not do that. The overall benefit of extension is getting your taxes right. By using the extra time wisely, you can file accurately. You can avoid errors, you can include more deductions, properly calculate payments, and prevent problems down the road. But of course, with pros, there are always cons. So as useful as extensions can be, there are some potential downsides to note. And this is the big one. You still need to estimate the taxes that are owed. You must pay in good faith what you expect to owe by April 15th. Truth is, folks, this takes effort, and you'll pay interest and penalties if you underpay. Another big one that a lot of people don't think about is there's a risk of forgetting to file. Some use extensions but then miss the October deadline altogether. That triggers huge penalties for late filing, so you've got to calendar and submit your return on time. Another thing that's a con is interest charges will accrue. The truth is, folks, if you owe taxes, interest starts accumulating on that amount beginning April 15th, even if you file an extension. Another con is amended returns still may be needed. Although less likely, you may discover new information later that requires amending your return. Unfortunately, an extension doesn't eliminate that possibility. And here's a big one, and I have some of these folks in my practice. This can become habit forming. Some make extensions an annual habit instead of prioritizing timely or tax prep. This temptation should be balanced with good planning, and unfortunately, we have our habitual offenders, I call them. And there's nothing wrong with it. They just need to understand that at some point, you really should be doing your taxes on time. And here's the thing I hear sometimes in my practice. Some people say, well, if you file an extension, you're less likely to get audited. That's just not true. The IRS may still review your return. An extension gives you more response time if audited, but doesn't reduce your audit risk. Returns filed April 15th remain subject to closer scrutiny in some cases. So while extensions facilitate accurate filing, they aren't a panacea. You must still estimate your tax liability wisely, file on time, and be thorough. Otherwise, an extension merely delays the inevitable, and problems associated with doing your taxes hastily or incorrectly will still creep up on you. Before we wrap up today, I want to remind all of our listeners to visit our podcast page. Do that at AskRalphPodcast.com. There you can leave a review, share your thoughts, or even send us a message with your questions for future episodes. Make sure you join our email list while you're there so that we can let you know about what's going on the program. And if you're one of those tax procrastinators, you can also schedule a consultation with me to discuss your specific circumstances or ask me to help you file an extension. Here's my ask for today. I want you to share this episode. If you know someone who has yet to file their taxes, or maybe you're one of those people and need to file an extension, listen to this episode and share with others who will benefit from it. So let's talk about the key takeaways from today. If this episode has you considering filing for an extension this tax season, here are some key tips to keep in mind. Number 1, pay your best estimate of taxes owed by April 15th to avoid penalties. As we discussed, you can't extend the time to pay. This is a great time to gather any missing forms or documents during the extension period. Don't just look at that October 15th deadline and say, well, I'll just wait till October the 11th and then work on this. Use that extra time to identify additional deductions you can claim. Use this time to refine your tax return. Maybe you can save yourself some money. It's a great time to check your math thoroughly. Extensions allow no margin for calculation errors. And here's the key, folks. Calendar extension due date and submit the final return on time. And understand an extension provides more filing time, not more time to pay. Interest charges continue to accrue. I wish I could tell you that it wasn't the case, but as of April 15th, if you owe money, your interest and penalties are still going to accrue. And as we said, this may not prevent you from having to file an amended return in the future. And finally, do not make this a habit. This extension shouldn't become an excuse for delayed tax filing every year. So in summary, tax extensions provide valuable breathing room for those who need more time to file accurately, but they aren't a free pass to delay paying taxes owed or submitting your return. These can be used to leverage an extension responsibly, understand the implications, and use the extra time productively to get your tax house in order. If you need to, reach out to a tax professional if you need assistance. On that note, I hope this overview gives you a better handle on tax extensions. Remember, Monday the 15th, when they make sense, what to watch out for, and how to navigate the process. As I said, please visit our website at AskRalphPodcast.com for more tax tips and financial resources. There are over 300 episodes out there. I appreciate you tuning in today. As I always say, stay financially savvy, and may God bless you, and get those tax returns done if you haven't done it already.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.